this chapter we'll be looking closely at the guided mode here inside Photoshop Elements and seeing what benefits there are to using it in our photographs. The guided mode does exactly what the title suggests. It guides users through image adjustments that require multiple steps to accomplish. As you'd expect, and similar to the quick mode, it's ideal for people starting out with the software because it's designed to be ultra intuitive and easy to use. And to access it, we just need to select an image and then enter the editor in one of those ways I demonstrated in the previous chapter, and the one I'm going to employ is that ultra handy keyboard shortcut, which is Control I here on the PC or Command I on the Mac. That will open the image in whatever editing workspace we last used, so if it's the quick mode, then all we need to do is switch to the guided mode up here at the top, and we enter the guided workspace. Once we're there, we'll probably find the working environment quite familiar, and that's because it is very similar to the quick mode that we saw in the last chapter. So we still have all of our menu items at the top, and below that we get some other important controls, notwithstanding these three in the middle of course. On the left we get our toolbox, but notice there's only two tools in it this time. Well, there's a good reason for that. Due to this being the guided mode, all the tools we need will be offered to us when we're being guided through the edits, so we really don't need to think about all that much. Now down here at the bottom we also get a photo bin that contains all the currently opened images, a panel we can open and close using the photo bin button down here at the bottom. The only major difference with what we are seeing is the panel of options to the right of the image. Instead of getting some quick colour and tonal adjustments, we see a whole list of edits that are split into three categories: touch-ups, photo effects and photo play. They all contain guided edits that can be easily applied to the open image. Now, we're not going to go through all of these because we'd be here for way too long, but instead I'm going to work with two guided edits in this video and then two in the next one also, and that way you'll get to see how they work, and then I'll encourage you to go off and try some other controls here inside this mode on your own. The idea of these edits is that if you can work with one of them, you can work with them all because they all employ a similar way of working. So let's give it a try. I'll start by adding an effect to this photograph we have on screen right before us, and if I come down to the photo effects category and then I'll click this Lomo Camera effect option like so, straight away I get a panel of instructions and information that forms the basis of the guided edit. I even get an example at the top here so I can see the effect that we're going to apply, and I can see what effects we might get by using it, and also the option of rolling my mouse over the image to see how it looked without the edit applied. That's ultra handy because we do get to see both sides of the story. We then get a number of steps to follow, so let's give it a go. Step number 1 tells me to click the button to give your image a Lomo Camera look. Click the button again to intensify the effect. Well, I guess I should have started off really by explaining what a Lomo Camera effect actually is, just in case you've never heard of it. Well, a Lomo Camera is a type of analog camera that records its picture straight onto film. It's pretty much been superseded by the digital camera, but it is still used by groups of enthusiasts who like the look of the photos that it creates more than anything. So I'll click the Lomo Camera effect button like I'm being told to, and the effect is applied to the image. Remember, if I want to strengthen it, I can click the button again, which I'll do, and there we go. Now for me that's a bit too much, so I'm going to back up using that super handy keyboard shortcut of Control Z here on the PC or Command Z on the Mac, and there we go. My next task is to add a vignette, and like before I get a specific instruction under the button. It says add a vignette to your image to finalize the Lomo effect. Click the button again to intensify the effect. Now, I'm not sure that I want to add a vignette because we're going to end up straightening and cropping this image anyway. But just for the sake of experimenting, I'll give it a go to see what we get. I'll click the button, and if you don't know, a vignette effect is going to add a darker edge to the four corners of the photograph. We already had a partial vignette around the image anyway, caused by me taking the shot through a netted plastic fence, so I'll put my hand up to that one. I'll hit the button again to intensify the effect, and you can see that we're getting some really dark corners now. Now, I quite like the effect myself, but as I said a few seconds ago, we're going to be cropping the image before we finish up. And I think the vignette might just get in the way when we get to that point. So I'm going to back up once again and remove it. To do that, I'll hit Control or Command Z a couple of times, and we get back to having our fence created vignette back once more. Okay, that's good. Once we're happy, we can click the Done button, and we've now applied the Lomo effect to the image. Next thing I want to do is lighten up these trees and add a little bit more depth to the sky. And to achieve all of that, I'll come up to the touch-up section, and I'm going to go for this Lighten and Darken option right here. I'm now presented with three sliders with which I can change the shadows, the highlights and the midtones of the image. We've already discussed these concepts inside an earlier tutorial, but let's check them out once again as we can make the relevant changes to this photograph by using these controls properly. So firstly, the shadows slider is going to lighten the darkest colours inside the image. So if I start moving this over, we can see that the trees in the background begin to lighten up. I'm going to move that to a value of 12, something like that anyway, and we see a slight improvement with those dark trees in the background. Next we have the highlights option, or the highlights slider I should say, and that will rein in the brightest areas of the image. So if we move that up a little, we start to see the sky coming back. And I'll continue to move that up, and keep in mind we're after a dramatic effect here, so I'll raise that all the way to the right, and we see the clouds and the sky reappear and look the part. I like what I'm seeing there so far. Midtones are the areas of the image that don't fall into the shadows or highlights, and in order to add a little contrast to the shot, I'm going to move this up slightly to something like the 10 mark, and that looks good, I'd say. We've got a little bit more contrast going on there. Once we're happy, we'll click the Done button to accept the changes we've made and apply them permanently to the photograph. At this stage, we've got something that looks really good. Coming up in the next video, we will straighten this very same photograph because I have noticed that it is a bit wonky at the moment. The fact that the sea's running from right to left is a dead giveaway in my opinion, so we're going to fix that up. And we'll also crop the image down so we get a better frame for the shot. We might also just add that vignette effect for good measure also.